Thank you. All right, here we go. Guys, welcome to the Division I meeting. Great to see everybody here. We're going to have a great meeting today, and believe it or not, the Cursed Clinic of Flat Car Build starts today. Over a year. This was supposed to have been done in November of 19. We started trying to get parts, we started trying to get this, that, and the other, and it just didn't work out. By the time we got all the parts and everything put together, and in a year, the pandemic happened. So we started our meetings up in May. I wanted to let everybody have the opportunity to get comfortable with coming back in face to face again. Everybody's unmasked except for Clarence back here, and I still don't know why he's wearing a mask. But we talked about that a month ago, and he took it off immediately. But apparently, he's back masking again. So he's incognito back here. All right.
Mike,
yes, sir.
We suggested cover up as much as you can.
Oh, for him, yeah. Where Clarence is concerned, I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave. Prompt him accordingly. That's great. So I'm going to try to get through all of our announcements as quick as we can so that we can get on to the clinic and give Duane and you guys enough time to work through everything. We're going to have a short intermission after the announcements. We're going to have Mr. Lysing right here. Raise your hand, Joe, please. And Mr. Wright over here. They're going to be working to pass out your packets of all of your material. Mr. Lysing worked very hard putting all of these packets together. Notice I'm not using the K word. These are not kits. They are packets of material. If they were kits, this wouldn't count as a scratch build. All right? So don't use the K word when you talk about what we're doing here today. All right? So we have packets of material that have been assembled for you. And we are going to be passing those out at intermission. One of the things we're going to do on that is, because of previous confusion, it's the right way to put that, we're going to have you sign when you pick up your packet. And all the packets are pre-labeled with your name and your scale that you're modeling in on there. There are extra materials in your packet, so you'll be able to build more than just one car with certain parts of the material. For instance, there's more lumber there than you really need because lumber came in a packet of X, and you bought a packet of the lumber, okay? So there's going to be leftover materials after you build one car. Whether or not you can build a second car is going to be determined by wheel sets, brake sets, things like that. So, but you'll have enough lumber to be able to construct another car on that. Anyway, we're gonna at the intermission, Joe and Dennis are going to be working together to pass out all of the packets to everybody. So you'll be able to get those and go from there. Very quickly, Mr. Cowles is handling the volunteers for the Plano NMRA booth. Daryl, would you stand up and do what you want to do here, please?
Yeah, I think in Mike's last column with the whistle, he's given my email address. Take a look at that. If you can work a shift, I'll have a chart made up here real quick so I can start filling in shifts, but the sooner I get those filled in, the better off we're going to be. It's fun. You sit there and get to visit all day. So it's, pick up an hour or two. It should be a big help. But come on down and we'll get you signed up. But contact me through email. Give me your phone number when you do that so that I can do that.
Thanks, Daryl. Shifts and job assignments are set up and tear down on the Friday before. The Sunday afternoon after the show, there's going to be the need for some clinics to be put on. We need to, I think Cole just walked in and he's gonna be doing a clinic on deep pouring resin like he did for our division meeting at the show. Thank you, Cole, for being voluntold on that. We appreciate it. There's gonna be need to work the switching table for the time saver. There's also going to be need for people to do recruiting and just talk to people about joining the NMRA. So those are kind of the different things we need there. A shift is normally a couple of hours. You can come in, you're still going to have to pay your admission. Pardon me. You're still going to have to pay your admission to get in the show. Can't get anything around that, but we appreciate you being able to volunteer and help us. I'm still taking sign-ups. Dennis actually is taking sign-ups for people to help with the visit for the Big Boy 4014. I had a conversation with the folks from Union Pacific earlier this week, and it is confirmed that I am going to be heading up the volunteer task force. We're looking to have about 30 people right now. Dennis, Jeremy just signed up here, so that puts us at 25. Okay, we've got about 5 more slots. If I can squeeze in more than that, I will do that. We're going to need about 5 people on Friday night, 5 people on Sunday morning, and the rest is going to be working on Saturday as crowd control, parking, answering questions as far as directing people to and from this location to that location. Where's the restroom? Where's the souvenir car? Stuff like that. And keeping people back away from the locomotive 25 feet or more. They want no closer than 25 feet is what they're asking.
I don't know if anybody can hear me or not, but there is no sound from the meeting. So y'all have a nice day. I'll see you later.
You got audio on the bottom?
I walked into the meeting. I'm listening to you right now.
Okay. Well, that was on his.
This is Jim, just so you know, I hear it, but there's usually an echo.
That's I'm working on it.
We're trying to get that taken care of. But anyway, all right. So I don't know who punched out. Yeah, it sounds like it. So typical model railroad, right?
All right, how's the town now?
Bruce, how we sounded?
Better.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be they're going to be providing lunch. We also are checking in, and this is where some extra bodies are going to have.
No, some guys are saying they didn't have any audio, and it had a terrible echo.
Okay, back to mute there, Bruce. Thank you. So we're checking to see if we're getting permission to set up an NMRA recruiting booth there or a tent where we can draw in some new members. And I'm waiting on permission from the Union Pacific to do that. So we'll set up with a table with our banner NMRA thing, our tablecloth that you got and all that stuff, and use it as a recruiting opportunity. That said, because we're being able, if we can, set up that, the AP chair has designated this as an NMRA sponsored event. So anybody working gets volunteer points towards their AP cert for volunteer. So that's another good thing to do. And we get up close and personal. I also asked the guy, I said, for the volunteers that are working, are we going to have the opportunity to get, up and around the locomotive, whatever, as kind of a thank you for being a volunteer? He goes, we'll have to wait and see how it works out, but there's a possibility we might can run you through the cab and this, that, and the other. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's another target there for us. Again, if you're interested and haven't volunteered, contact Mr. Wright over here before the meeting is over with, and we'll go from there. Okay? Thank you, Dennis, for helping with that. We still need volunteers. What? Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Question, a few years ago, when Fort Worth was in town, Ken Farmer called me, he Fort Worth Fire.
Okay.
Could I arrange water for the engine back then? You know if that's already taken care of?
It hasn't been brought up to me, but I'll ask the question. It's a good question. Thanks, Barry. I'll find out. Okay, thank you. All right, that's good. I'll ask that question. It's the engine's going to be parked on what they call the gauntlet track, which is on the northwest corner of Tower 55, kind of in between the T&P and the Santa Fe station. So that's where it's going to be parked. It's supposed to arrive on Friday, the 13th of August at I believe at 16:30 is the time that they've got it coming in to Fort Worth.
Not 16:30, but 18:30 or 16.
No, 4:30 in the afternoon. That's the information that I was told.
Which track are they coming?
They're coming in on the Choctaw Sub. I don't know which track, but they're coming in from Denton. They're coming in and coming down through Denton, Roanoke, Keller, Watauga, Alton City, and then into Fort Worth on the Choctaw Sub. So, and then when they leave, they're leaving and going from Tower 55 on the SP. They're gonna the old SP line. They're leaving and going to Midlothian, Mansfield, Midlothian, Waxahachie, and then they're stopping in Midlothian. They're stopping in Mahia, and then they'll take the SP all the way on into Houston through Corsicana and Hearn and all the way down that way. So that's the route. They're on their way to New Orleans as the ultimate destination. Then they'll be coming back through Shreveport and then coming back up that way from New Orleans. Any other questions on that? Okay, we still need more volunteers for the 2023 National Convention. I know it's a long way out, but we still need to start putting our heads together on that and getting some volunteers signed up for that, please. I'm sorry? On what's been published, not what's official.
So this is UP website.
Okay, that's still subject to change.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Based on the information that I got the other day, they put some stuff out there, but they may be revising it. So the yeah, military time is we're having a time hack. Okay, we'll see what happens. Please, if you can, raise your hand for the 23 convention. Talk to Dennis. He's taking those names. He's the volunteer coordinator for that, along with Gerald Mabry out of the Southeast region. Those two are our volunteer coordinators for that. Duane, do we have any awards to pass out this month?
No new ones. Did Greg McComas or Dean Ferris come today?
They did not.
Then no.
Okay. You have anything you want to say about the AP program?
Oh, I always have something to say about the AP.
I figured as much.
We did have a bit of a boo-boo last month. National got the wires crossed, and Mr. Lysing here, or Oj, got his electrical last month. Unfortunately, it got labeled up for Greg on the certificate. So that's what happened there. I've got that corrected with Frank, and it will get included in the July batch, and it'll get mentioned in the magazine and all that kind of stuff. So you got a cert coming next month. Again, you guys heard me say this time and time again, but seriously, if you want to get better at what you do, what we all do, get involved in the AP. It will make you a better modeler. If you got any questions, please let me know. We are working with the new administration. Fortunately, has a gentleman over here in D3. You all know Speed. Speed is now the NMRA IT specialist, And one of the things that I am working with Speed for is to try to help make filling out your AP paperwork quicker. One of the things I'd talked with him about was it would be nice if you could log in to the site when it pulls in your ID and all your addressing information and everything, so that when you go out and you pick a form that you want to fill out for your achievement program, it'll already auto-populate your name, your expiration date, your address, and all that basic information. So all you have to do is go down through there and tick a few boxes, include the drawings and your score sheets, and away you go. So it's not a lot, but it's a little bit, and we'll take all that we can get, because those of us who've gone through all of this will tell you it's like writing War and Peace sometimes. So more to follow on that. But again, that's kind of where we sit. Get me some paperwork, fellas. I know some of you guys are qualified for a lot of things. If you've got a working railroad at home, or even a partially working railroad, you've probably got electrical. If you've done any handling, you've probably got civil. You probably got to start on cars, or most of you will later today. Keep that in mind.
I know there's, just like Duane said, there are a number of people in this room. Please just sit down and fill out the flipping papers. Okay? That's all you got to do, guys. I mean, really. Daryl, you know I'm talking to you, Daryl.
Can you hear the words
Can
coming
you
out of my
hear?
mouth?
Can you hear what I'm saying to you, brother? All right? Please just fill it out. It doesn't take that long. And once you get started, you're going to find out it's a whole lot easier than what you really thought. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions about anything? Yes, sir.
Yeah, on Friday, trains coming in through Denton.
That would be Friday, August the 13th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, coming through Denton and right on down the Denton Highway then.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. I'll be there.
Okay. All right. To watch or to work?
Again,
To watch or to work?
well, to watch and I'll talk to the man.
Okay, going to talk to the man. Okay, cool. All right. Can you hand that to Dennis, please? Now the time that you all know and love, break out your red tickets. Break out your red tickets. I'm going to ask our illustrious treasurer to reach his hand in and pull out ticket number 1. Yeah, well.
Infamous?
Okay, that too. He still hadn't turned in the receipt for his new camper, so he's still our treasurer. Okay, until he September's meeting. Okay, good. Last 3 numbers 906.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, figured as much. 906, Steve. All right, Steve. We've got box number 1, 2, or 3, or the surprise gift. The surprise, which do you choose? 1, 2, or 3, or surprise? 3. You got to come. I'm not bringing it to you. Get your lazy self up and get up here. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Number 3. All right, here we go. Let's see. Oh, first, literally rattle out of the box. You get a package of. We didn't have Milk Duds, so we got M&Ms.
Even better, an upgrade.
And a $5 gift certificate to Discount Model Train. All right. Thank you, sir.
Need any help with those M&Ms, let me know.
All right. Oh, you get to draw the next ticket. Don't look, just draw. There you go. Pull out 1. And the number is 912. Ed,
Mr. McGinnis.
glad you're back. No, you get just like him. Come up here. All right. You guys, man.
It's the D1 cardiovascular program.
That's right. That's right.
Gonna get your steps in.
Yeah, really. And I've had that, and you will feel much better after it's over with. Along with two knees on mine. I've got. My wife says that whenever I die, she's gonna melt all those titanium parts down and sell it and make some money. So number 1. All right. There we go. 912. Number 1 is A $10 gift certificate discount model train. All right. Cool beans. All right. And the next one is $8.93. That would be Jeremy. All right, buddy, come on up. Number 2 or the special prize. Number 2. All right.
Hey. That way's okay. This way's a problem.
I'm not going to ask because I don't understand what that means, but we'll talk later.
I'll
okay?
explain it later when the mics aren't listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you get a $15 gift certificate discount model train. All right. All right. All right. 915. 915. Come on up, Mike. Dr. Mike, you get the special prize or the special prize. Which do you choose? Oh, you put it in here. Don't put it in here. You want the special prize or the special prize? Special prize. Okay. We have, no, not a phone. This is passenger equipment of the Pennsylvania Railroad, volume number 2, all about sleepers.
Wow.
There you go. All right. You're welcome.
That's special.
Draw another one if you would.
I wonder where you got that, Mike.
At the RPM show. All right. And finally, 907. Who is 907? Come on up, sir. What? And Mike, you get the final special prize.
Oh, wow.
A signed and numbered Winfield print right here. This is there's another one that's already framed over here. I got to tell you a story about that one, but this is signed and thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. This is signed and numbered Winfield. This particular print is the background of our division page on our website. So that's where this came from. And very good. All right. Thank you, sir. Glad you're here. Big round of applause to all of our winners. So at the RPM meet 2 weeks ago, which was over at the Forest Hill Community Center, I walked in with these. And by the way, if you're interested in buying one of these, they're $25. The proceeds go to the division. A portion of them, we got to pay the people that got them printed back, but the portion of it, $10 of it goes back to the division as fundraiser. So I was over there, and Venus Whaley, who works for the city of Forest Hill, who is also an honorary life member of the Texas Western Club, I said, hey, I got something I want to show you. And I pulled out the picture and showed her. She goes, I want one. I said, okay, great. $25. She goes, I don't have any money with me right now. I said, tomorrow's fine. Bring it tomorrow. So the next day she comes in, taps me on the shoulder on Saturday, and she gives me some money. I didn't even look at it. Thank you very much. Take care, sweetheart. Appreciate you. In a minute, Dick shows up, and I pull out the money to give it to him, and it was a $50 bill. And she didn't want any change. And then she said, I talked to her later, I said, hey, what are you doing? This is like, she goes, nope, my pleasure. She goes, and what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and have it framed and donate it to the Texas Western so it can be put on the wall. How great is that? How great is that?
Thank you, Venus.
Yeah, Venus. That's the one that's over there. Yeah. Unbelievable. Speaking of the Texas Western, I want to call on David Crumpton, who's the president of Texas Western. David, thank you for letting us meet here. We appreciate it. And David, if you want to say a couple of words.
Sure, thank you, Mike. First of all, welcome to our home. We're glad you're here. We do have memberships available. So if you are inclined to take a look at our club and see what we do,
We need all hands on deck to help us finish phase one, which is what you're seeing back there. We're almost to the point where we're ready to lay down ballast as soon as we get through checking some track gauges and making sure that's fine. But we're to the point we're almost ready to lay down ballast, paint some clouds, and start setting in buildings. So we're on the cusp of this thing really looking like a railroad layout. So if you'd like to be a member, we are working usually on Thursdays from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Saturdays, typically from 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock, come and go. You don't have to come for the whole time. Saturdays, we're usually here from about 2 o'clock on. So we're glad that you're here today, and thank you for holding your meeting here and giving us a chance to share what we have with the division.
Very good. One final thing, I want to call out a visitor that we've got. Do we have anybody besides Stu that is a visitor and or new member in the last month? Yes, sir. Gene, great to have you. I'm glad you stayed on top of me and got your information. Were you able to get the parts list? Yes. Okay, cool. Gene, thanks for being here. You guys are recipients of a program that I want to mention to everybody. Because of a benefactor in the Southeast region, by the way, special guest, Mr. Pat McCarthy from the Southeast region.
Amen.
Pat used to live here. He then moved to Jackson, Mississippi. A lot of you guys know Pat from when he lived here. I know that Bustle knows him, Steele knows him from a long way back. But anyway, Pat's over visiting for a few days, and glad he's here. Pat also is the elections committee chair for national. So if anybody wants to run for office, you'll go through this guy and talk to him at the national level. All right. And understand that there's a whole new world because of Gordy's administration taking over, and the old boys network that used to try to control things at the upper level is, if you've heard the term union busting, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So this is all, it's a wonderful new day in the NMRA because of Gordy's leadership. Anyway, because of a benefactor in the SER, the Lone Star region has a fund for veterans who are not members of the NMRA to have their first, oh, Chris, welcome. Glad you're here. The NMRA has a fund for new members to have their first year's dues paid by this fund for veterans, okay? If you know of a veteran who has an interest in trains, that's not a member of the NMRA, please contact them and contact me, and let's get together so that we can get them a membership that doesn't cost them a dime for the first year. So these two guys are the latest benefactors of that, okay? So Stu, Gene, thank you. Glad you're here today. Thanks for coming. All right. Anybody else have any other thing? Show and tell real quick. Duane, I know you brought something for show and tell.
Yeah, brought a project I'm working on. Years ago, IHC made these Barnhart log loaders, and they weren't that expensive, but they pivot around and everything. And I thought, okay, I'm looking at doing a little bit of logging, and that might be kind of an interesting thing to have. Come to find out, these were only really prevalent back east. So if you're doing more of the Western US like I do, this really wasn't something you found over there. I still wasn't overly heartbroken because I planned on, using these for some other purposes anyway. For those of you as a kid who read Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel, I have every intention on turning one of these into one of those and burying that booger in a big hole somewhere. But I bought several of them, and for an article I'm working on, I decided to convert it into a crane car for my logging railroad. Fortunately, the cab of this thing just pops off. In the back are two vertical cylinders and what's supposed to be a donkey engine, a vertical boiler powered engine.
That looks familiar.
And No, it's not.
It's not?
It's not.
Okay.
The castings that come within this, because they're so far back in the back, have next to no detail on them at all. This, however, was a load that several different companies have made this and sold this over the years. The most recent one is, I think it's called Scenic Masters, but you basically get this and a couple of crates as a flat car load. And these little donkey engines are just detailed enough that they look pretty good sitting back off in the woods. And I bought several of those as well for future projects, and this just happened to be one of them. So what I ended up doing was I stripped the cab down to the basic mechanism and then scratch built an extension to it. I sistered in the sills to lengthen the car out by 7 feet to give me some place to put a bunker for some coal, and a Thomas York barrel casting here, or tank casting for the water supply set in the back. That also helped be a counterweight to some of the loads that it'll be lifting. It does articulate a little bit up and down. I can clip the wires and get it to move further if I wanted to. It still fully swings one way or the other. The donkey engine, I took off its skids. I cut the flapper off the top of the smokestack, drilled out the smokestack, and then mounted the flapper in an up position so I can actually have it look like it's working. And I've got a little pedestal built for it where it sits in here now. I've got a few more things I want to do to it. I've got to put a roof over the superstructure to keep the crew out of the rain and everything else. But all of that is going to sit on a flat car, just like what we're building today. So thought I'd bring that along to show everybody. These things have a lot of uses around your railroad. So
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else have anything for show and tell? Mike,
Yes, sir. I'll walk up there.
please do.
I wanted you to know I didn't dress like this because I had to go to a funeral after this.
I wondered where you're preaching.
Yeah, I dressed like this really to
Make the rest of us feel bad.
That's right. Yeah.
honor, trying to limit my upset with Mike Mackey here.
Oh, geez.
I blame this on him. This used to be a brand new, shiny, nice Intermountain gondola until I loaded one of Mike's laser printed strap loads in it. Actually had spliced 2 loads, and now it's a rotten, broken up piece of crap that's good.
Hey!
Scrap load.
It's finally done.
Yeah.
So, thought you'd enjoy seeing.
If it ain't dirty,
It
it's.
ain't done.
Thank you,
That's
Duane.
right.
All right.
Don't roll off
Set
there.
it. Set it on the. Yeah. No. Well, I was going to say set it on the bubble wrap.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That way it won't roll.
I've got one, Mike.
Okay.
Now I get to see who signed up online.
Okay. Who said they've got one?
Me, Bruce.
Bruce. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Shoot
I just-
me.
Okay, I can't share screen. It'll be what it is. So I don't know if you can switch it
There you
over
go.
or what.
Well,
That's
All right.
That's,
Anyhow, just finished breakfast here in Phoenix, so I'm sitting at the kitchen table. But I wanted to say to all the people that are there today working on these cars that this is more important than I think any of you recognize. In that I got my car's certificate based on 6 scratch-built flat cars that I did in a huge batch. You know, when you line them all up and you do 6 at once and you make a fixture to set all the sills and all that together, it goes a lot better. And I did 6 cars like that, and made one into a gondola, made one into a tank, et cetera, et cetera. And excuse me. I had a couple of other cars that I'd done previously. I did these in ON30. When I was done, I looked at the 2 that I was going to have, which were both flat cars that I was going to have evaluated, and I said, they'll merit, but I'm not sure how much above that. And so we'll see what happens. And took him to, I was doing this work all in Kansas City and in Miles Hale's shop. And so I took him to the, what is it, the Turkey Creek Division, Duane?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And I took them to the division meet and had them evaluated by a team that was headed up by Paul, Duane's dad, and got something like 114 points on them. And I go, okay, I thought they might make 90. So you got to be, you got to learn. And this was the last of the certificates that I needed that were, artistic kinds of things. I had the two engineering certificates left to do, and that was it for my MMR. So the point is, you guys are in a wonderful position right now today, going into to doing this. And if you look at this and you say, gee, this works for me, and you go home and you replicate that 7 times and make them into different kinds of cars, you've got your car's certificate. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yep. Thanks, Bruce. We sure appreciate it. And glad you're joining us in from Phoenix. We've got guys from literally, we're starting to spread the word from D1 all around the country and literally around the globe, thanks to the participation. I was talking with Pat on the way over here today. I am so fortunate to have the team working that I've got, putting this whole division together and doing what we're doing. We've just got a fantastic team, and it's all coming together. It's working like clockwork. And Mike Ross just informed me today we set a new high watermark for our division in attendance, either in the room or online. We've got a total of 52 people that's in here. How great. Isn't that great? So thanks for participating. Thanks for being here. Anybody else have anything else before we wrap this up and have our little intermission? All right. Any other questions about anything? Okay. We're going to take a short little intermission. We're going to let Mr. Lysing and Mr. Wright pass out your packets of information. Come right here to the front and we'll pass that out. Enjoy your intermission. Drink the little bitty drinks up and get rid of them so that we can get full-size drinks again. All right. Thank you. Yeah, really. They like the little bitty Cokes. Yeah.
For those of you that registered for the packages, if you have plans.
Excellent. Yay. All right. Want to kind of get, as we get started, everybody starts getting their stuff out and getting ready. I want to add on to something that Bruce mentioned earlier. The reason we talked about teaching this class, and I've taught it a couple, 3 times over the years, is the freight car backbone in the early days. When you talk about wooden freight equipment, the absolute spine of almost every car you can imagine is basically a flat car. They are flat cars. You add sides and ends to them, they become a gondola. You add taller sides and ends and a roof and put some doors in the middle of it, it's a box car. You put different doors in the middle, you put hatches up on the roof, and now it's a reefer. You put the slatted sides and ends and a roof on it, now it's a stock car. You put a tank car on it, and now it's a tank car. You know, this becomes the basis. I mean, I haven't filed this one down yet, but you can mount a tank on a flat car, and it makes it into a nice looking little ride. You can put different loads on them. Now you're going to note we're not putting weight in the car itself. I wanted to keep this clinic really basic because I know a lot of you, this is your first chance at building a car. So I wanted to keep it as straightforward as I can. If you'd like to talk about hiding the weight within the car, we can talk about that one offline a little bit. For HO and up, it's pretty easy to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to hide our weight within a load. Loads can be done in a lot of different ways. You can buy loads that are castings like these that are available from Chooch. They are a resin casting. They have a little bit of weight to them as it is. You can take them, turn them upside down, take your Dremel or a drill and drill you a hole or 2 in it. You can backfill that with some lead and add a little weight to it. In S scale, I made these for a flat car load for our club that are made out of coffee stirring sticks that you can get at like restaurant supplies or whatever, Starbucks. And if you stack them up and you only use, and it's a little hard to see here, but if you take these and stack them up, don't get real precise on it. You want it to have a little bit of irregularity on the ends, but you can take it and cut the bottom ones short so that they're only here and here on the end, leaving you a cavity here that you can backfill with weight. And you can make them long boards, short boards, whatever you want. Stack those up over the bolster and add your weight that way. You can turn these into little gondolas. You can hide a little bit of brass underneath your coal load if you want to. So there's a lot of different options. What boils down to. Things to think about for different types of loads and such. I saw a picture here in a Century Plus 10, which is a book that covers the DNRGW's narrow gauge, and I ran across a clearance car. And that is exactly what it looked like. Just mounted on a flat car. So what I ended up doing is I took the NMRA clearance gauge, traced that off on a piece of paper, and then edge glued all of the various parts and pieces together, and now that's a flat car load.
Duane?
Yes, sir.
Hold it up again.
Yeah.
Camera 2. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There.
That's a 5-minute project and creates a
Not for
nice little
McCarthy.
load,
No, that's a 3-day project for McCarthy.
Now, now something else we're going to do. You'll note that within all the parts and pieces, we did not get stake pockets. Most of your flat cars have got stake pockets on them. There are obviously, some railroads that didn't have them. We are not putting stake pockets on these. If you want to get them and add them, I can help you in the placement of those. They are listed on the plans. The plans were basically designed off a 30-foot narrow gauge car, and I have scaled them up to or down to the various sizes for everybody. But if you want to make a 40-footer, add 10 feet, not real hard. Do not follow the bolster location that's marked on these. The trucks we were able to get for HO standard are a lot wider wheelbase than what we had when we did this the last time. So we're going to have to drop back and punt a little bit on to figure out where the bolsters are going to need to be mounted. But we're going to carve those. I'll show you how to do that. If you start thinking about expanding these flat cars out, you can actually buy roof stock. It's available from several different places. It's already milled into a shape. So it's kind of hard to see it on the camera there, but it's already got the pitch for the roof. It's already back cut, so it'll sit around your walls and create the roof of insert car type here. But I've got a whole box full of those that I've stashed away over the years. Unfortunately, they're all standard gauge, so they'll be for other projects. Something else that I'm going to show you when we get down to the tail end of this is a quickie clinic on making gondola sides. And I believe it's February of 1968 issue of Model Railroader and the Dollar Car Projects article. They did a deal on gang building gondola sides. And what you do is you use scribe siding, some L channel and some U channel, and you lay this thing out in pairs just as far down as the 2 channel pieces will let you go, usually about 10 to 12 inches, depending on where you're buying your materials from. And then as you need them, you cut them across and separate the 2 sides, and then they will go up against your car. And all that overhang that was the space is the depth of your sills. So you have an outside braced gondola. And you can do this in styrene, you can do them in wood. These build up really quick, and you can just set them aside, and as you need a car, you can cut a pair off. Now, if you are working towards the AP, you're going to want to build these the way we're building them today. If you're trying to pad out your fleet, and the idea is you're going to put an air cylinder underneath it, and that's about as far as the brake rigging is going to go, it's not going to get judged. You want a car that will operate. A paint stirring stick is the greatest flat car you'll ever buy. That's exactly what that is. I put just enough strip wood on the bottom of it to give you a quote set of sills. But you set a bolster on that and build your sides up on it to make a gondola out of it, or run it and put a deck on it and run it as a flat. That is the fastest way you'll ever build a flat car in your life.
In HO scale.
In HO scale.
I still have your measuring stick, flat car.
Yeah.
How many years ago?
Yeah. We built them out of yardsticks one time when we did this years ago. So yeah, the idea is basically find you something that's roughly the width you want and or need, and all of that. It makes up into a very quick car. All right. So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the wood that you're going to use for the sides and your end beams. So we're looking for the 4x. All right, we've got 4x8s, 4x10s, and 4x12s. All right, take out one length of 4x12 material. The one that says 4x10 or 4x12. They're all labeled in size. You should only need one of those. 4x12. You will need one piece.
Duane,
Sir.
Mr. Archer is asking, how do you get the plan for HON3 to do this at home?
If you're playing along at home, the plans are on LoneStarRegion.com. Go to the clinics page, and it's in the construction section. There's the deal on building a wooden flat car, and then right next to that are the plans, and it's in a PDF. Download the PDF. Now, I will warn you, if you are going to print these off again and build another one, when you download a PDF, the default setting in Adobe is shrink it to fit the page. Even though it doesn't need to shrink it, it does it anyway. If you do not uncheck the box, your 30-foot car will be about 28 feet long. Ask me how I know this. So if you're going to print them off and play along at the house, be sure when you print that off to turn that little check box off so it'll print it on the actual size. All right, we're going to start with that one 4x12 piece. You should have brought a piece of sandpaper with you. Now, Mount Albert, that we got a lot of this stuff from, is pretty smooth lumber most of the time, but even running your finger across it, you will note it's got a little bit of a rough edge. If you take,
It's a guy.
yeah, it's a guy. So if you take the piece, take your sandpaper, fold your sandpaper over till the grit's facing on the inside, lay the strip into the sandpaper and pull it through, all the way through. Do not push. If you push, it's going to bind and it's going to break. I guarantee it. I mean, I'll guarantee you better than Men's Warehouse will guarantee it. It will bind, it will break. And trust me, if it's the last piece you have in this size, it's really going to break because Murphy hates us all. All right, you may have to do this a couple of times. Flip it around and take the end you were holding and make sure you do that. I like 220 grit is preferred. The sandpaper, as long as it's about like this stuff here, some 180. This sanding sponge is a 320. Sanding sponges are another great one because they're designed to be flexible and folded and all of that kind of stuff. Once you get it roughed down, or get the rough edges smoothed down, I guess I should say, here's what we're going to do to stain this. And actually, you know what? Let's set that aside for a second, and we're going to grab our side sill pieces. And we're going to take out the 4x10.
I just didn't want you to miss out.
And we're going to start with a couple of those. Depending on how long your car is, if you're making a 40-footer in HO, you're probably going to need 2 lengths of it. If you're making 30s, you can get it out of 1 length of the material I have in my packet. So you only need to get the 1 out for right now. Sand it the same way. Using the pass. Yep. All right. Yeah, here's something Steve's doing. He is using an emery board and laying it flat on the table and just sanding straight across it. That's another good option. Emery boards, if you buy these things over at like Sally Beauty Supply or someplace like that, you can buy them in various grits. I have everything in that toolbox from 80 grit coarse all the way up to like 3,000 or 4,000. So you can get them in polishing grits if you want to. These things are cheap relatively, but they are invaluable and far cheaper than buying sanding sticks from hobby suppliers.
Just go get one out of your wife's fingernail thing.
I would suggest not getting one out of your wife's fingernail supplies and things, because trust me, she has that divorce attorney's phone number on speed dial. Not that it's hard to remember, 666.
You're welcome. I said you're welcome.
All right, has everybody got their parts sanded? All right, now, did everybody bring a piece of paper towel? If not, we've got some napkins in the back. I'm taking this off. All right, the decals we will be providing next month will be custom lettered for this clinic. I have been helping Craig Chapusi over in D3, getting his decal business set up, and we have been setting up DNRGW cars. That's why a lot of the decal clinics and stuff we've done over the last few months have had DNRGW decals provided, because you guys have been our guinea pigs. However, even though they're free, we've gotten complaints. Why is it every time we decal something, it's DNRGW? Because it's the coolest prototype out there, short of the Frisco.
Well,
No prejudice involved in that statement.
Not a lick.
Sounded a little biased.
Not a lick, not a bit. But, so to get around that little problem, we have custom lettering. So the cars, I believe, are going to be lettered, I think it's CCLS for Cowcatcher Lone Star. And then it'll have a card and a number jumble, so you can assign whatever car number you want to it. And D3, when they did theirs was TRLS for Trinity River. So you'll have a custom set of decals. It'll make for a one-off car. I'll be getting with Craig to print those off, and we will be decaling the car next month and then putting all the brake rigging and everything else underneath it. So, all right, for everybody that's ready. Now, one of the things that we mentioned, yes, sir. Yeah, you're all sanded, ready to go? All right, we're getting ready to start the next step. We are providing white lettering. So hopefully you bought either black or boxcar red or something like that with you. So what we're going to do is, once you got your paint shaken up, and believe it or not, plain old craft paint works really well for this. You're going to take your paper towel, place it over the open bottle, and give it one little shake.
take the cap off.
All right. You're going to take this off. You're going to lay your wood in it, just like you did sanding, and you're going to drag it through. Now, typically, these were not painted on the inside, I know, but we're going to go ahead and do it that way. So we're going to drag this thing through a couple times, and it'll get the paint put on it much faster than trying to whip out a paintbrush and trying to apply it
Get on
that
the
way.
edge too. Thick.
If it doesn't give you a perfect coverage, don't worry about it. If you're planning on weathering your car, that's just where the paint's peeling off. Do that with both pieces that we just sanded.
You got your car, Mike?
Now, fortunately, this 4x12, we're not going to need but a little length of it, so you don't have to do the whole strip if you don't want to. So that's okay. You got enough material, you can make more than one car. That'll get you some pre-painted material for the next round.
One question,
Sir,
why would you stain it or paint it now rather than doing it after you've already built the car?
because this is going to be a little bit faster. Being able to drag it through the rag like that, you can paint the entire length of wood in seconds, where if you've got to sit down with a paintbrush and do this, you're going to be at it for a few minutes. So this is just a work.
This paint would keep the glue from sticking.
Not at all. Not at all.
You also don't have to be as precise with your brush.
Yeah, if you've already got your deck on this thing and then you come back in and try to start painting it, then you got to be real careful to not get paint on your deck boards. So this is one of the things where when we do these make and takes, I'm always talking to you guys about don't work ahead. You may think you know the next step, don't, because this is where I get to pass on to you the things I've figured out over 40 plus years of modeling, and some of the things I've figured out how to work a little quicker. So.
4 years of modeling and 4 years of mistakes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. There's a guitar builder that I like to watch over in the UK. He's on YouTube, and he made a comment one time that I really liked. He said that the mark of a craftsman isn't that he doesn't make mistakes anymore. It's just he knows how to recover from them when he makes them. And I'm like, yeah, that pretty much covers it right there.
Unlike a golfer hitting in the sand trap.
Golfers are aiming for that
Yeah,
sand trap
sometimes
half
they
the
aim
time.
for 'em,
The pros are
right,
at least,
yeah.
because when they play, it's nice fluffy sand. It's not
Yeah,
a parking
yeah,
lot like
yeah.
on the munis you and I play. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you know it's not going to skip through the green that way.
Or in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just hope and pray that sand's been raked sometime this millennia.
Yesterday, there was no sand.
Just a dirt bunker, huh?
It said GUR, I said, dude.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, ground
Yep.
under repair.
You betcha. Fill that thing out there and take a drop, baby.
That's it. And no penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
On my way to a 41.
Okay, quit bragging.
Hey, sorry.
They ain't bragging if you can do it.
I didn't say the front nine score.
Yeah. Hey, that's not bad for 3 holes.
You say
About what I was doing on the front.
Yeah.
Oh my
You say
God.
he got on hole 40, he's praying he can one putt to save his 8.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, there's a book out there that says lining up my fourth putt.
Yeah. All right. Now we've got our stuff stained and we're setting that aside and letting it dry. We're going to start cutting our deck boards. Now, I have a scale rule at the house that was made by X-Acto. They are no longer available anymore. And trust me, it never leaves home for fear of someone else walking off with it or me losing it. The reason that ruler is so important is the edge is 0. On most of your rulers, they're probably made by General or somebody like that. You will note on HO gauge that's missing its U, the edge is -1. So when you start lining up your cuts on your chopper, be sure to make sure that you compensate for that distance, okay? Now, most choppers, if you've got the older style, that notch right there to allow the blade to clear is exactly 1 HO scale foot wide. So that can help you when you're laying your measurements out. You might want to double check it. I would recommend, and I didn't bring mine with me, but like what Steve has here is the chopper 3. If you got to order one, order the 3. And the reason being is you've got a little extra length, so you've got more material support, but it's also drilled out and everything. You can buy a second handle for it or rob it off your old one when you wear out the masonite and mount another one on the other end, and you can have 2 setups going on this. So for when you're making repetitive cuts, if you're making a trestle, for example, you're going to find you're making a lot of the same 2 or 3 size cuts, and you can set them all up on a chopper pretty easily that way. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, measure your plans. And what you're going to find for like HON3, for example, that car is 7.5 feet wide. Your deck boards for HO standard are 8.5 feet wide. Set your chopper up. You're going to pull out the 2x10s. And I've got mine laying up here somewhere. 2x6s. We're going 2x10s. And we are going to start cutting deck boards while the glue dries, or the paint dries on the stuff we just did. 2x10s. I believe you should have a length of 2x10s. If you don't, use the 2x6s. Okay, 2x6 is what everybody got? All right. I had some lumber, well, my small package of strip wood, and trust me, this is a small package. I've got a box that's like yay big full of it. It fell into my box I had all my clinic stuff with, so I don't know what came in the package. I don't remember what came in the package and what didn't. So if you've got 2x6s, we'll work with 2x6s. Pull those out, and you're going to need a bunch of them. I cannot tell you exactly how many you're going to need just yet. Suffice to say, a bunch, because you're going to be getting all the way across that car. Now, the one thing I will tell you, if you have a chopper, is you don't need to do this one board at a time. Because if you do this one board at a time, Daryl's going to need to bring you a breakfast menu because you're going to be spending the night cutting deck boards. Okay? I pull these out 4 or 5 at a time, lay them all out side by side. I don't know about yours, but mine are exceedingly rough finished. So we're going to take them at a pair at a time, 2x6. And I'm going to sand these just once. I want to just knock the fuzz off of them. Deck boards on flat cars get used, abused, and otherwise mistreated. As I've said before, you know, a railroad doesn't very carefully grab a load, lift it with a crane, and very daintily set it down on the deck of the car, get it to where it's going, and then very carefully pick it up and ever so gently remove it from the deck of the car. They're going to latch a hold of that thing with whatever they've got. They're going to drag it on, and they're going to drag it off. The boards get ripped up on the ends a lot. They're not finished, so they're out there exposed to all the weather. So they get beat up, banged up, and then weather rotted on top of everything else. So you don't necessarily want these things to be 400 grit smooth. A little rough's not bad. Fuzzy's a problem. So I just did one little light pass with the 220 sanding paper, and then you can measure out the length or the width you need for your load here, or for your deck. Remembering to compensate for 0. So what I would suggest you do is use the edge and line it up on your plan and verify that your ruler is indeed, and like mine, 1 full scale foot off, and then just work from that measurement instead of the actual. So in my case, I'm going 7.5 feet wide because I'm doing narrow gauge as God intended. And I gotta get my digs in when I can, right?
Oh, man.
So on my plans, because they're 7.5, but because the edge isn't 0, and I'm gonna preach on this a lot, it's 6.5 if I measure it from absolute edge, okay? So I'm setting my chopper up for 6.5, which is actually 7.5 in this case. Everybody got me? All right, then I'm gonna take 4 boards at a time. I'm gonna make sure I've got them lined up edge to edge, not vertical thick, but side to side. I'm gonna line this up on my chopper. After I've set my stop block, of course, I've got them all lined up there, and I'm gonna cut them 4 at a time. And if you're making a 30-foot car, do the math in your head of roughly how many of these you're gonna need if they're 6 inches wide. So you should need about 60 of them. If you're making a 40-foot car, you're going to need about 80 of them. Don't go too far.
I'm not just trying to get a better camera angle.
Yep. All right. All right. What are we working on? All right, while you guys are looking at that, let me go talk with my N-scale crowd. We're building a different style home.
But David is building virtually.
Huh?
Ryan's is doing a virtual N-scale.
Yeah.
I was kind of one maybe.
He didn't even hear you.
I know. So you got all those deck boards cut, Dave? Yeah, you got all those deck boards cut? I mean,
I'm done, yeah.
okay. I thought you were doing virtual. I was just making sure.
Moving on to something else. And now for something totally different.
I think I'm gonna go get another N-scale Coke.
Thanks, please, yeah.
And then there's a little rain that handles in right there. He said he got 4 times.
Sir.
So when you go to mountain, it goes to 6. How much room do you need to allow for the so whenever I did this.
I went ahead and drew the state office in, roughly where they were. Yeah, roughly. You can put them wherever you want. Yeah. And then, we're not gonna be putting those on there. See, I just sent it back and showed you. Yeah, basically.
You have a gearbox, just set it on there. You can tell where the wheels will go. I mean, the cover box. You hit the cover box, just put it on the end right here, and then you see how far back you want to set your wheels. Only if you want the wheels to hit it. So what I'm saying is that you have to make a decision. Because basically, if you put it towards the axle, it's going, the wheels are going to hit. So if there's going to be, so that's why I always just set the cover box on there. Okay, so I can see what it looks like. I don't have to have the cover, I just have to have the box, so I can see on there how far back, and then I can gauge this guy. And then you do exactly the same thing on the other side.
So that's
This has a lip on it. Okay. So that, and the lip is what catches on the front edge, and it's supposed to, so that you can determine how far back it's going to step. Now, with this in mind, you can allow the wheels to turn to hit it, or you can move it back just a tad, allow the wheels to miss it. Well, it depends on how prototypical you want to be, because basically, if you stop and think about it, if you hit the box, like if you move it up here, you hit the box. That's well, no, it's going to stop. It's going to stop the wheel action, but you're still going to make a good 24-inch radius curve or anything else. But if you've got like an 18-inch radius curve, then yeah, you probably want to slide it back a little bit so it can just clear. Okay, it depends on your track and what you want. But more prototypically speaking,
For a 30-foot car, you should need 60 of them. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Prototypically, you're going to have a 24 or better radius on all your radius. But if you're one of the people who wants a really sharp curve because of space limitations, then you can make that adjustment.
Yeah, I went with 24
But if you really were to scale down the prototype, their minimum radius, even on narrow gauge, is far beyond what we would ever show and build them all where,
Yeah, well, they're dealing with real world issues, and we get that.
But again, it's because of that we a truck on a standard gauge might pivot maybe that far.
Well, he was wondering how far back to put his bolster, okay?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it depends upon where you want. I mean, right, you can have it here, but you just realize that you're going to hit the gearbox.
Yeah.
I mean, the coupler box. So if you have a really sharp curve, you've got to get really sharp curves. You're going to have to set it back a little bit so that the wheels just miss.
Yep.
And so, that's how I gauge it.
Yeah.
Now, prototypically speaking, I will usually follow the plans. And when I follow the plans, I end up having to cut those things off.
You end up probably have to notch these a little bit, scalp them, so the wheels have room to pivot through them.
But that's, and so I can set my wheels closer because I tend to have wider radius, curve. So I can be up in here, so I can actually just do the measurement off the car plans, like his bolster. That's sitting real close to the front.
Yeah.
On this guy, and maybe move it back just a tad. But that's because of if you want to gauge it, that's how I go about it. When I'm working on somebody else's car, what kind of curve do I have to deal with? If he's got 36-inch curves, then I'm tell you what, I'm okay. Yeah. I'm going to clear. Okay. If he's got 24-inch curves, I might move it back just a tad. But if he's got 18-inch curves, I'm going to have to drop it back a bit because I want to clear. It does look really far back, but it really depends on what you want to do. Like typically speaking, like Mikey said.
Yes. When you go out and whenever you're looking for the plans online. It's one PDF and it has all the different scales in it, and it's set for, actually it's built for 0 and 3, but 0 and 3, 0 and 30, 6 inches. I mean, and those are really the only difference in that is the 6 inches are on the wheelbase, not the rest of the car. So if you go with the 0 and 3 plans, it should set you up for them.
But there are a lot of factors
Now, one of the things I just realized in talking with one of the gentlemen in the back that had to take off to fix a plumbing emergency, yeah, make sure you get stained the 4x12, the whole length of the board. I wasn't thinking when I said not to. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and get your color on that one. Yeah. The 4x12. Yeah, if you didn't stain the whole piece, go ahead and make sure you did that. This one around and this one. These two go back in the two spots. Well, but here's the thing, Dick. Good practice makes perfect. Bad practice just makes bad results, and then it becomes a bad habit you have to unlearn. Amen. Ask me how I know that one too. All right. Yes, sir.
Because we've been waiting so long to do these flat cars, should they be slightly swayed?
Can if you want to. I would suggest it. Gives them character. I took some pictures when I went out to Sacramento for the Narrow Gauge Convention. One of the guys we were going with knows John Olson. If you ever watched any of the combat videos back in the late 80s, early 90s, him and Malcolm Furlow and several of the guys were doing a lot of those. And we got to go out to John's house and had dinner with him and his wife and got to see the railroad and things. And I took a lot of pictures while I was out there. And one of them, he has this gondola, narrow gauge gondola, and it's all swayed out in the center of it. And it's got a sign setting up above it. It's like so-and-so's used freight cars. This one's for sale, gently used. I always like the John Allen articles where him and a buddy were mailing the cars back and forth. He had a big old fat brakeman on the top of it and swayed it back. Yeah. And he sent it off to a buddy of his and said, "Hey, I want to highly recommend you hire this guy." And basically got down to the end of it. He's so fat, he's sway backing all of our equipment, and we want to send him. So he turns around and sent it back and had another line to the story. And then he turns around and built a car with like 2 or 3 sets of trucks on either end. Really high. But when he sent it back with a running buddy who's also just as big. So he ended up building this steel frame with like 2 or 3 sets of trucks under either end of it and made it some sort of beer inspection car or something like that. It's in the book, but it's a hilarious read. Yes, sir. Certainly, sir.
Back in the day, I would remind of this. Actually, I didn't find it.
Yeah. All right. Everybody got some deck boards going? All right. Yay. Okay. Now, We're gonna now take the 4x12 that you stained up earlier, should be nice and dry, because God bless acrylic paints, they dry pretty quick. And you wanna measure that on your plan for your scale of choice. And for HO scale, the end sills should be 9 feet. In narrow gauge, they should be 8. You're going to want to cut 2 of those. That's the 4x12? That is the 4x12. That is the end sills. So a quick refresher, going off the plans. Can you get me on 2 or whichever one? Okay, I got it here. If you're looking at your plans, and you can't really see the plans in the deal, but if you're looking at the plan set, if you're looking at the upside down version of the framing of the car, so you're looking at this one right here. These on the outside are the side sills. These up here on either end that cap it off are the end sills. The 2 in the center are the center sills. And then you've got 1 between the center sill and the side, that's your intermediate sill. Some standard gauge cars had 2 of these. We're putting in 1.
So if you want to do a 40-foot car with center sills.
For your center sills?
Yeah.
Well, your center sills, you're always going to have 2.
Only have 2.
Yeah. For your intermediates, you can put in 2 if you want to. I think Joe did. You did 2 on yours, didn't you? I did. Yeah. If you want to do a 40-foot car and you're doing standard gauge, then yeah, I would say you can put in 2 if you want to on either side.
You go over that again, please.
Sure. So if you're looking at the plans, these are your end sills right here. These are your side sills. These 2 are your center sills. And then anything in between the center and the side is an intermediate sill.
So the end sills and the side sills are 4x12.
Isn't the end sills the 4x12 and then the inside sills a little smaller because where the deck boards go in?
We're going to make the.
No,
Yeah, no, we're going to.
the side sill and the center sills are your weight bearing sills, so they're going to be your 4x12.
I was talking about the end sills and the side sills.
And then anything between the center and the side is an
Yeah, exactly. Everything we're doing right now.
This piece.
Yeah, the end sills usually sit lower on this side. You got all the stuff you're cutting into it. And usually.
All right. Once you get your 2 end sills cut, measure your side sills
It works.
to length.
It did work.
What you're going to want to do to double check your length is take the 2 ends you just cut, stack those 2 on top of one another, and measure that thickness. And then figure out what the difference is to get your 40 feet remainder. It should be 8 scale inches thick. So you're going to need to make your side sills about 29 4 inches or something like that. I'm not going to go back there and drop a scale ruler on everybody's flat car and go, you're 4 inches short. Fail, not going to happen. But just allow for that difference, okay?
Yeah, he holds out on that until he judges the car.
And then surprise.
Duane on the drawing, it measures out to be 29.
That's probably, it's probably what happened was the PDF scaled a little bit.
But this is, on this, you say that you adjusted it, and this is his scale here.
This is probably not,
Probably not.
because when you go to print one, if you don't tick the little box to turn off the scaling, it will, what size you looking for? HO? Tell you what, HO standard?
Can you do another one?
I got it. I'm just going to clip the narrow gauge side off of this one. There you go. You bet.
I remember you saying that, but I thought you had made the adjustment.
No, we didn't. So yeah, just the plans are there for a base reference. If you didn't get them, always measure the plans and make sure they are what they're supposed to be. If you're printing from a PDF, again, you have that little hiccup you got to get around. So if the plans didn't come off dead on 30, always work off what the ruler says, not what the plans say. Now, when you're working with a chopper, unfortunately, one of the limitations of a chopper, when you start going through thicker material, is blade deflection. That razor blade will want to start to drift, and you're going to end up with a cut that's got a little bit of a scoop to it. You can quickly correct this with an emery board. What I have up here is the Ultimation sander. If you do a lot of scratch building, this tool is invaluable. However, if you do not do a lot of scratch building, that emery board's $2 and change. This is like $250 and change. So you have to check current pricing. I've had this for a while and I don't know the exact price off the top of my head. The advantage to the sander here, it has a rubber ring on the end of it. It has a hand crank so you can control the speed. It has a dead 90 set here. It also has a angle bevel gauge on the side that you can set to be whatever angle you need it to be. This also has the repeater on it that allows you to dial in a certain length. You can cut the thing a little proud, set it in here, and the spring load will then compensate. And when it runs out of spring, you've now repeated your cut. When you're making trestles, this thing is a godsend. No two ways about it. If you have one of these, I'll bring my cuts up here. I'll lay them on the True 90 piece out on the end, and literally with my thumb, just rock the thing back and forth a couple of times and square it up. Now, again, if you've got an emery board this one is a 100 grit on one side and 180 on the other, you can very quickly just make a couple of passes with it and it'll trim that little bevel off of it fairly quickly. But once you have your side sills cut, we're going to start doing some assembly. That's wild. My overall length is 30 on mine. Well, they make those little lines closer and closer together every year, don't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. 4x12s. Yeah, I want some extra meat in there. Now, for those of you with the Chopper 1, the original, or the, trying to think of what version it is. I saw somebody back there had one, the metal one, the black metal one. Is that a Chopper 2? Is that what they call that one? Yeah. You don't have enough side-to-side width to really measure it out and put you a stop block out there for when you're cutting your side sills. Again, that's why having the Chopper 3 is a real advantage. Yeah, that's true. And in scale, actually. Yeah. Hopefully, when these are done, they will be in gauge. If they're not going to travel worth nothing. Now, one of the things I just did on mine, let me move some of this off so I can show it to you. Let's see, I'm on that camera. All right, so I used my first piece. I lined up with my scale rule, figured out my length, and then I used, in the Masonite versions, your blade will eventually make a little divot where the blade chops through. And you can use that as a reference line when you go to make your cuts. And I took the piece and lined it up, got it where I wanted my piece to be, and then I lined the length I needed up on that divot and made my first cut, okay? Then holding that piece up against this piece, I now take this and I will use that as an alignment guide so that I have two identical cut pieces. Since you don't have a stop block out here to make this with, I'm going to go in, I'm going to lower the blade on the chopper down just far enough to kind of touch the cut I just made on the first board. So I'm laying the one I already cut on the inside against the stop, okay, against the back stop. And then I'm lowering the blade down just enough to where because it's going to come down at an angle, right? So the back end of it is now up against the board it already made a cut on. I make sure I'm aligned down here on the left-hand edge, and then I go ahead and I make my cut. And what I end up with then are two identical side sills, and those cuts are made nice and quick. You don't have to stop and remeasure and reline it and all that. Let's go ahead and make them 4x12.
We're doing our side seals there. We got to figure that out.
You'll need to figure out your length. Now, what we figured out was once you cut those little boxes off the frames, that they were right at 24 feet. Then we figured out we needed 10 feet on either side of that. Right? Is that what we needed, or was it 5 feet? Measure the width of your wheelbase on your trucks, and we're going to have to add that width to either end of that length. Sorry. Yeah. Now, are you doing coupler mounted? The couplers, are they mounted on the truck, or are you going to body mount them?
They're mounted on the truck.
Okay.
We're making our side seals out of 44.
Correct. Do what? If you made them out of 4x10, that's fine. Not going to hurt a thing, but it's better to make them out of the 4x12 for what we're doing.
Well, one thing that way, the next.
That's the beautiful thing about these things. The whole idea with this, when we're done, is you're really trying to come up with a car that's probably a little more homemade, shop built, purpose built for the railroad, as opposed to something they went out and contracted from American Car and Foundry, and they could buy 500 of them and they're absolutely identical. If you want to go that route, you can. What we're doing right now is I'm going to be teaching you a quick and dirty on a flat car, how to get all the parts and pieces in it, and teach you some tricks on how to work quickly. And then you can take that home, and if you want to precisely replicate something with those skill sets, you can do that later on. We're going for quick and easy because we've got a couple of dozen guys here all trying to work together. So. Yeah, there's a boo-boo on that one, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Sure is. That one should be that one's thickness. But it's not.
Well, which the internal side.
True. True. All right, once you've got all four of your parts cut, if everybody's ready for that, we can start gluing these together. Now, hopefully you have something with which to keep it square. Either an assembly tray, a engineer's square, a Lego,
something,
a jig. You'll want something that'll help you keep a perfect 90-degree corner is really what this boils down to. Oh yeah, there you go. 1, 2, 3 blocks. Those work real well too. And what we're going to do is we're going to use what a friend of mine dubbed the L7 method. You're going to take an end sill and a side sill, and you're going to glue them together to make an L shape. You're going to take the other end sill and the other side, and you're going to glue a 7 shape. And then we're going to put them together. Yep, stand them up tall-wise. If you think about how a freight car is put together, you can't lay them down. They've got to be standing up. Now you'll note in the plans there is a little bit of relief on the end sills to the side sills. They overlap just a little bit. That's up to you, but all cars have got just a little smidge of overhang. An exact measurement, couldn't tell you. Steel, what is it? Probably 3-4 inches maybe on either side on a prototype, something like that?
On my photograph, it's about 2 inches.
Yeah, so I mean, it's almost negligible what it is. If you want to put that on there, fine. If you don't, make sure they're flush. However you want to do it, it's up to you. The CC and LS car shops were kind of all over the place. Depends on who built what that day. So have at it and have fun. Now, I did recommend that you all bring wood glue. Aleene's tacky will work, but wood glue is better. It will give you a stronger joint. Now, when I'm building structures, I like the Aleenes. I like being able to have a little bit of flexibility in the joints to make that work. With this car, if you plan on running these, you're going to be putting a lot of stress on those glue joints. If you start pulling heavy cars behind it, you're going to want something that's a little more durable than Aleene's tacky. So if you've got wood glue, I would suggest you use it. If you don't, come see me and I'll give you a little bit of mine. Those who have been to scratch building clinics with me before have seen this. That right there is a handy weapon for all model railroaders. It is a shot glass. The bottom of a shot glass has a dimple in it. I know most of us don't see the bottom of the glass that often. We're looking up through it, but we're not looking at the other end. The bottom of that shot glass, almost all of them have a little dimpled well in it, and it's perfect for putting your glue in. And the reason I like this is it's now up off the glue surface. If you have it, I've seen guys work on sticky notes, and I thought that was a really neat idea because you build up a little bit of glue, you peel the sticky note off, you throw it away, you got a brand new one. The problem is it's still sitting right there on your work surface. And guess what happens? You start talking with your wife or the kids or the grandkids, or like I did, you're watching a stock car race and the guy you've known since you were 6 is going door handle to door handle with the dirtiest driver in NASCAR, and you're paying attention to the race and you're not paying attention to where your elbow ends up, and you look down and your arm is in the glue. It happens every time. Again, Murphy hates all of us. Don't give him any opportunities to get after you. If you've got it up here, it's harder to get your arm into it. It's also shaped so that if you did manage to knock it over, which by the way takes some effort, it will roll around in a circle and not off the floor or off the table onto the floor, because if it does, again, Murphy's going to make sure that it lands like that with the glue side down. It's like, why does the buttered side of the toast always land on the floor, right? Yep. Same principle. I really like working on this. I got this idea from, I believe it was Dave Frary on an old Kalmbach video, and I've been using it ever since. The nice part is, if you ever watch Alton Brown on the cooking channel, and he always talks about no unitaskers in his kitchen, this is not a unitasker on your bench either, because after a hard day's modeling, it still turns over and can be used for its original God-intended purpose. There you go. So I put a little bit of glue on the edge of my shot glass. You can use a toothpick to apply your glue. You can use a micro brush to apply your glue. I like a sewing needle. This is a head pin, and it's a quilting size head pin. I bought a box of these. They're a little bit longer than your traditional sewing pin. They've got a little needle on they've got a ball on the end of them. I make trees with these when I'm doing the, drill the hole and put each branch in individually kind of trees. Because when you drill that hole, if anybody's ever done that, they're going to back me up on this. I'm going to see some heads nodding and probably a couple of amens. When you drill that hole and you go to grab your tree branch, you're going to look back on your trunk and the hole is gone. It's like it heals over. It's amazing. But if you drill that hole and you've got one of these handy and you stick it into that hole, you can keep drilling holes all the way around your tree, and you can see how busy the branches are going to be. So I keep a box of these things handy. You buy them over at Hobby Lobby or any of your sewing supply stores. But I found they make a really nice glue applicator, because when the glue dries on the end of a toothpick, you've now got to cut the end of the toothpick off or flip it around, use the other end, and then throw it away. The glue dries on this one. I just take it and grab it with my fingernail and drag the dried glue off of it, and I'm ready to go on the next one. Yeah, it's a little head pin. You do not use any more glue than you have to. It does not take the whole bottle to put the pieces together. It takes just a little bit of glue. Now, one thing I will tell you, when you start gluing this together, you want to be sure, like on the plans, that you are gluing the end of the side sill to the inside edge of the end sill. Now, this is going to be an ingrained joint to a now painted surface if you got paint on both sides of your 4x12 like I did, unfortunately. Typically, railroads didn't paint the underneath side of the car because it required paint, it required paying the guy to paint it, and it required that time to be down and not making money. So they typically did not paint the underneath side of the car. Now, if you go to any of the railroad museums, if you go out to the Cumbres and Toltec and roll up underneath one of those cars, you're going to go, aha, Duane was wrong. Well, guess again. Museums paint the underneath side of their car because they're protecting their pieces. Most of the railroads didn't. They might have rolled out of American Car and Foundry with a coat of paint on them, but by and large, they never got painted again.
So, Duane,
Sir.
paint the bottom of your helmets, you need to do some pieces, right?
You what?
You paint the bottom, you say it's in a museum.
There you go. Yeah, this is now a museum piece. It's like somewhere on the railroad, I actually bought, or somebody gave me a diesel locomotive here a while back. And it was mostly as a joke, knowing that I don't do anything with those. But I think somewhere on a city park, I'm going to stuff and mount it and have all my steam engines running around it. Just for giggles. Why? Because I can. Now, I've seen guys on the internet, rather well-known modelers, and you'll see them up here with the glue bottle, putting the glue on. Don't do that. Again, you're just giving Murphy some ammo, and he's going to come back and he's going to make you hurt for it. Oh, you and me both. I start screaming at I have yelled at YouTube more times than I care to imagine. There was a remodeling show on HGTV, and it's called First Time Flippers. And I don't know if it's still on or not. My wife made me stop watching that one because I would see these people about to start cutting through a wall, and I'm like, have you turned the power off? Do you know if there's electrical behind that or plumbing or anything? And they'll whip out a circular saw and start cutting through the wall, and I'm just screaming at the television. She goes, one of these days you're going to get mad and you're going to throw that remote right through that big expensive TV of ours. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I got to quit doing that. My blood pressure can't take it.
They'd edit it out if they was for electrocution.
No, they don't actually. There was one, the couple was redoing a kitchen, and they had it was an old ceramic tile countertop and backsplash, and there were electrical outlets embedded in the backsplash, and they're getting ready to pull the thing out, and the wife asked him, have you made sure the power's off on all of these? He goes, yeah, I checked it with a probe. See, it's dead. He didn't check all of them. He checked the one down there on the end he was holding. She reached a hold of that and grabbed her end of it, and zzz. I think he found out how comfortable that couch was. She was not real happy with him because it shocked the snot out of her. All right, believe it or not, by using just a little bit of wood glue, it will not take long for that joint to set up. So we'll give it a couple of minutes to do its business, and then we're going to turn those two pieces around and create the rectangle that'll be the basic frame of the car. Anybody got any questions? Need some help? Excellent. When you've built one of these and you find out just exactly how easy this really is, you're going to be tempted to build another one. I wholeheartedly recommend it. If you have any questions and you get stuck on it, my phone number is on the LSR website. If you go to the LSR, LoneStarRegion.com, go to the officers page, and come down to the achievement program. I am the head of the achievement program for the LSR, and my phone number's down there. Give me a call. I'll be happy to help you out. But once you've built one or two of these, you're going to find you can whip them together really fast. I was teaching a clinic at an SN3 symposium a few years ago, and I had pitched them to do this exact same clinic. We're just going to build them in SN3. And it was felt that we couldn't get them done in time, so they opted to build a kit, which nobody got finished. I had D1 member, used to be a D3 member, but D1 member now, Bob Brindle, is a former architect, retired, and he does some of the best jobs of making styrene look like wood. It's stunning. when he gets done with it. So I asked Bob to come over and teach how to make those plastic decks look like raw wood. And while he was doing that, I built 2 SN3 flat cars. Just while he was teaching him how to make so, I mean, it's one of those things where once you get the chopper set up, man, you can crank these parts out in a hurry. And it goes together so quickly. This first one's going to take us a while because you're just not used to, these particular steps and making this particular assembly. All right, to give you an idea, my first one's already dry. My second one could use a couple of more minutes to toughen up here. The joint may be just a little soft yet, but we can still work with it. One thing about working with carpenter's glue, if you've gotten used to modeling with Aleene's tacky glue gives you a really nice flexible joint. So if you get something that's just a little out of plumb, you can kind of bend it back and straighten it up. Once that carpenter's glue dries, it's there. If you need to straighten it up, you're gonna have to cut it apart, sand the glue off, and do it again. So if it's holding like that, but it's still just a little bit soft, that's really what the stage we're looking for. Because if you need to straighten that up a little bit as we put this rectangle together, this will give you the opportunity to make any small micro correction you may need to make. So once they've set up to that level, we're now going to glue those 2 pieces together to make the rectangle for our car. Same exact principle, a little bit of wood glue, slide the parts together. If you've got something that you can use to make sure they're square, line it up and let it go. If you're getting any squeeze out of glue, use your applicator to come back in and scrape that off. Do not let it dry on the model. But here's the important part. If you ever get squeeze out on something and you're going to stain it later with alcohol and India ink, or if you're building a piece of furniture, do not ever, ever, ever reach up there with your finger and wipe that glue off, because it's going to seal the wood fibers, and then that wood will not take stain the way the rest of the materials will. It's funny, I just heard somebody open up a can of soda. I remember a kit I bought one time. Step 1 in the kit, open a beer. I went, well, this is going to be an adventure.
Was that Bar Mills?
It was not, actually.
It was sort of like what Thomas York would say.
Yeah.
The Bar Mills stuff, they put a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
Something.
I don't remember the name of the kit. I wish I could remember the manufacturer. But yeah, the instructions weren't much more than a 3x5 card on here's how you build this freight car kit, and it was a box of sticks. They figured they gave you a picture, that was enough. You should be able to build it off of that. Do what?
You don't need to be building that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Expanding, are you?
Honest to God.
Okay.
And once you get your rectangle glued together, we're going to grab some 4x10 stock, and we're going to make all the centers and the intermediates. Now, typically I make my center sills out of the same 4x12. but for the sake of expediency and what we're working on, we're going to make them out of the 4x10s. Now the end scalers, you don't need these because you have that steel frame that you're using in its stead. So you're going to use a 4x10s to make 4 boards the same length that you made your side sills out of.
So they'll extend over the side sills, right?
No.
Yeah, what?
So,
Same
so your intermediate and your center sills are going to be the same length as your side sills because they're all going to butt up against each other on the end, in the inside the end sills. Yes, sir. That could be part of it.
Wait, so the intermediate sill, 4x12.
Well, no. Typically, what I'll do with mine, because I'm putting my coupler pocket on the center sill, I make the centers out of 4x12, and then I make the intermediates out of 4x10. But in this case, I'm going to show you how to build a little platform up to glue to attach the coupler pocket to. So we're going to make all the sills the same 4x10s, because otherwise you've got to make some adjustments with the needle beams, and it's more work.
Okay.
No problem.
Got my rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make these 4.
Correct. Out of 4x10. Okay.
Leave the staining blue.
No, leave them unstanding. Leave them raw. Yeah, as humid as it is in here, it may take the glue a little bit longer to set up. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we found when we did these over in D3, we did them over at Donna's house in her garage, and it was raining to beat the band that day, and glue just would not set up. I put some glue on the top of that shot glass that I guarantee you stayed active for 2.5 or 3 hours. And there was a couple of guys in there were trying to build with regular Elmer's white glue. And it's like, nope, that is not going to work. Yep. I build almost everything out of regular Type Bond. If it's an outdoor project, obviously I use the waterproof version. I've taken to using Type Bond Extend. It's a little more open time, and for a lot, if you're doing a lot of like mortise and tenon joinery and things like that, it's really handy for that. But the gluing strength of it's a little better too. They also make a thick glue if you're doing trim work. That's really nice. They make some stuff called Type Bond 50, I think is what it's called. But you can't buy it in the States unless you buy it by like a 5-gallon bucket. And but I know a lot of the luthiers in Europe like them for building instruments out of because the glue joints are just that much stronger. I'm in cybersecurity.
It sounds like you're doing fine.
I build furniture and stuff as my other hobby. So I build furniture and harps and guitars and stuff like that. I got a friend of mine owns a home theater company. I do custom pieces and built-ins for him and whoever else might want something. And then
You're working 3 hours a day. You work.
I wish I could say I work only 3 hours a day. Yeah, no, I do cybersecurity for one of the big 3 credit reporting companies. It's a daily knockdown. Yeah, it's a lot of work. I enjoy it though. It's a lot of fun, and they pay me to do it. So there you go. Yeah, we just switched from a Symantec product over to McAfee. Symantec got bought out by Broadcom, And Broadcom's trying to do the same thing that IBM and CA did, where they want to be that end-to-end solution. And the problem they've bumped into is that it increased everybody's licensing cost almost tenfold. They came back to us and gave us the invoice, and after our procurement people, woke up from passing out, we told them, yeah, there's no way we're doing that. They wouldn't negotiate, so we were like, okay, bye. And they were looking at us like, they thought they had us over a barrel because, yeah, when they figured they had us over a barrel, I think, because we were 6 days, something like that, from our license for our email tool to expire. And, software, you start changing tools, it's 5 or 6 months worth of tool review, 5 or 6 months worth of migration. And they're like, there's no way they're going to do this in 6 months. We already had the McAfee product installed. So all we had to do was go turn that little section of it on and migrate the policies over. So. Yeah. But the nice part is we already had the agent running on everybody's endpoint. So we were able to turn one agent off. So it actually kind of picks up some of the slack. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah, public floggings ought to be brought back. I think if they actually prosecuted this stuff, a lot of it would stop.
District got hit by ransomware a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
90,000.
Oh yeah.
I mean, anybody that could read your computer, we were working in the warehouse on tables.
Mm-hmm.
On overtime,
Yep. Bring it in, get a fresh copy.
90,000.
Hope you have everything backed up. Oh yeah. It's horrible.
And the problem that got through from the servers on site to the servers downtown, the ESC, the Digital Service Center, and got into one of the service centers in the vault downtown Fort Worth. Got into the quicker backup all weekend.
We've been working through the rest of our EPO migration, and it's.
Text message went out Sunday night. Do not turn on your computer.
Yeah, we've been finishing up our migration now. We did half of it right after Thanksgiving, and we're doing the other half, finishing up the other half of it now.
I went to some of this.
Do what? Oh God, I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like that's it. Yep. So we've got, with some of the new M&A, I would venture we're probably somewhere between 18,000 and 19,000 employees now. Now, not all of them have a physical endpoint. Some of them are on VDIs, but yeah, it's a ton of work. But like I say, it's fun. I love doing what I do. Yep. They pay me well, and the benefits are nice, and I am the first in 4 or 5 generations not to work for the railroad. And a lot of my family, where I grew up, that was one of the best jobs you could have, was working on the railroad. Unless you were a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. And everybody's like, well, why didn't you go to work for the railroad? And I said, it never rains in my office. It never snows in my office. It's never 105 degrees outside. It's never, below freezing in my office. So on the Eagles' second album, there's a song on the B side called Doolin Dalton. And in there's a line that says, a man can use his back or use his brains. And I went, wise words. Yep. Well, and the funny part about it is I'll turn around in my shop and start lugging around, large slabs of wood and stuff like that. And ended up working hard out there. So I mean, it's not like I have an aversion to it. It's just this pays so much better.
Yeah, I'm learning now that.
Yep. All right, so everybody's frame glued up and glue set?
I'm gonna have to leave, so if anybody needs to sign up for, the big boy, while you're waiting for the glue to dry.
I signed up for June. No, I need 20 for the.
On Friday, well,
You got to do a clinic for the trade show?
go ahead.
Cool.
Seeing the layout in there, they need it. If I ever get around to redoing the pictures. What level is that? What level does that show?
It counts as far as volunteer forms?
I have volunteer.
Okay, then make sure you have a one-page handout. And it counts for all.
Yeah,
The
I wanted
first
to
time
have
you
it
get
all, yeah.
they did an additional.
So I've got one I did years ago at a clinic, which shows I still have the hand.
Excellent. Yeah, if you'll include a copy of that when you send in your SOQ. And
I don't know how many I need. I submitted an article on the CPI because it's in fact so you can get better depth of field in the picture, buy a better camera.
Yeah.
Thanks to the person.
Yeah. Try using your cell phone. It'd be amazing what pictures you can get on the cell phone.
I was just using a little.
Yeah.
I have a better camera.
All right, so once everybody's got their outer frame put together, we're going to glue in the center sills and the intermediate sill. So what you're going to end up with is something that looks a bit like this. Now, since the sides are all 4x12, and these sills here are going to be 4x10s, right in, there's going to be a difference in height. So what you want to do is the top of the car, where your deck is going to be attached to, what's going to end up ultimately facing up, turn that down on the tabletop and push the sills all the way to the tabletop. That way your difference in height will be on the bottom of the car. Because you want those center sills to touch the bottom of the deck boards. When those are in and dry, we're going to start gluing the deck on it. And once the deck's on, we're going to call it a day. Only if you want to, but do it afterwards and after they're really good and dry. Yeah, I mean, I'm literally laying my frame on the plans and helping the plans help me line them up widthwise. A lot of times when I'm working on a set of plans like this, I'll take it and tape it down to my workbench, and then put a piece of wax paper over that or a piece of glass and secure that down, and then I work right on top of the glass. So if you're building a Campbell's kit or something like that where they've got really good elevations on them, that's a real good way to help get your parts lined up and get your parts and pieces glued together. Question? Yeah, I think the plans might be just a skosh off from when they printed. PDF's real bad about that.
Yeah, but when I measure the plan,
The plan comes out right?
While I was gone, the way you guys had put in this the center seal.
We're just now starting that. Now, if you're watching the screen, if we've got it zoomed in here, it looks like we do on what I'm doing, you'll note that I think I put the first one in by hand, but the second one I grabbed with this pair of tweezers right here. I really like working with negative tweezers. You guys have heard me preach about these in the past, and I've just really gotten in the habit of using that to help guide and align a part into place, because I can see around those tweezers a lot easier than I can around my fat fingers.
No, our drawing doesn't show that.
We haven't put, yeah, it's that piece right there.
Well, my point being is that this is wider than what the drawing shows.
Yes, it is, because the drawing is just a placeholder. Because it's going to depend on what type of truck you're using, what wheelbase of truck you're using, because like these fit for HON3, but they're not going to be the proper placement for the HO standard. Because even though when we scaled them out, the wheelbase of the trucks that we picked up this time are longer. So the bolsters are going to have to move in.
I got that. Okay. Now, you had mentioned about this. I guess you were talking about the size of the stuff that there's something about you said push down.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that these go all the way to, so we're building the car upside down. So you want to make sure that this goes all, just like when we put these in, make sure they go all the way down to the tabletop.
Yeah, I see. I see.
That way, when you turn it over, everything's flat right across here. And when we glue our deck boards onto this, we can then glue it across all of them.
I got you. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
You bet.
Appreciate you coming out to do that.
Oh, this is, yeah, I've done this one several times now. This is a fun plan. All right, now we're kind of back to that stage of watching glue dry.
Something important for
ACC? The ACC's pretty static stuff. Okay. To give you an idea, I'm working on a car box. I'll take a template, I'll take a piece of masking tape, and I take a piece of masking tape and I put it so that the lines of tape I put on the template lines up with the masking tape on one. I put CA on one, I put accelerator on the other, so the wind is going to go. And it will hold it enough that I can run that across the cluster and get it all router. You get it all lined up in the template, and then you go to the rest of it, but the one thing holding it together is the line of the tape. So it will keep it from shifting, but shear weight is a part. So I'd be worried about ECC doing that. I would almost go to something like Gorilla makes it hard for an E6000, or it's an E6000 on top of it. Really want to get really secure, which is a very small because you're doing two different types of material together. I know. And so that's going to fit on top of the plaster right here? Yes. I'm going to make my box, but I can do that at home. Mine's almost too wide. Mine's almost too wide, and yours almost too narrow. You take it to that. It's real close. I'm real bored. We're back on my chopper, so stay with the chopper.
What I did. Yeah. I got the full weight.
Sir. I've got this little square here. Show you where I'm talking about. Okay, very good. Very good. Yeah, looking at Boston. Hey, Duane. Sure. I'm like government. I just got to put these in, and then I told them,
Yeah.
because I thought, okay, no, these
Plus,
ones
in
are
fact, I
going
can take
first.
something fast.
So
This is what we're working on. Don't worry about the bolsters yet. Because we're gonna put these all in one piece. And we're gonna come back in once they do the.
I already broke one of mine. One of these.
And then we'll put those in, and they sell.
Office Depot, Office Depot, Hobby Lobby.
Put it on 3. Just lay it down.
Okay.
Yeah, lay it up over to your diagram.
Okay.
Like you did. That's what I've been doing.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, cool. So it's this one over here?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now, if you look up here on the screen, you'll note you've got this little edge right here that's going to need to be touched up from where we cut it after we stained it first. That's about the only thing you're going to need a paintbrush for. Now, you'll also note that like over here, I don't have some paint in here. Don't care. I'm going to come back in and stain that later with some alcohol and India ink when we start doing the finish work, and it will make all of that go away. All right? Because for me, that's future weathering. If you want to have a brand new looking car, then yeah, take your paintbrush and go touch it up. And you want to make sure you do that now, because we're going to start gluing the deck boards on here in a second. And you don't want to be trying to paint the car after the deck boards are on. It will make a big mess of things. Correct. Now, one of the nice things about working with the shot glass, okay, is as the glue starts to set up, you can come in here and lift it right off of there, and it's ready to go for the next batch. If you let it dry, even the wood glue will come off of it. It just takes a little more prying. If you've got alines that you're working with, it'll come right off with no problem at all. Now, while we're waiting on this to dry, we can talk about a couple of detail features. We did do a light sand on the boards that we use to make the decking out of. And again, I mentioned these things are outside, they're getting rained on, they're getting used, abused, and otherwise mistreated. So to some degree, we need to take and undo a little bit of what we did. You're going to need just a little hint of grain in them. Now, what I have here is a razor saw blade that I have used, and it's kind of got to the point where it's a little on the dull side. So I have labeled this one wood grain only. So I know not to put this back in a handle and try to use it again. Now, what you can do with this, once you get your deck boards on here, is you can come back in with a razor saw like this and just drag it, put it at a little bit of an angle and drag it from side to side down the length of the board. And it's going to put some small little scratches in it that'll give it a little bit of grain. Or if I bought this one from PBL years ago, it works like a little grease pencil, but it has a steel bristle brush loaded in it. When you bought this one, it came with a brass one, a steel one, and a fiberglass one. And I bought it for the fiberglass one because there was a very good article in an old Gazette talking about scratchback weathering. It works like a champ. However, you will be picking pieces of fiberglass out of your fingers and thumb for years when you do that. I have also learned the hard way that use of a brass bristle brush will leave little bits of brass behind. And guess what brass does when it tarnishes and oxidizes? It turns green. Then you get to explain these odd green stripes in your weathering. So you throw the fiberglass one and the brass one away, and you mount the steel bristle brush in it. Now, the tool guy, James Trains, sells these. I bought one over at the Plano show. I think they're $5, and it comes with he's got a couple of different versions. The black handled one that I bought has a steel bristle already mounted in it. These are fantastic for putting wood grain into N and HO scale stuff. You start working at bigger scales, this still will work okay. I would go a little more heavy on the saw type for O and S. If you're doing G, you know, you can really get wild with it. But for the smaller scales, these little pens like this will be some of the best $5 you're going to spend, because you can come back in and add some texture to your cars simply by dragging this across, and it's going to make some really nice little fine detail in here. And I just put it away, but I can get it back out again. When you come back in and you go to stain it, it'll pick up all the little differences in the boards. And this is another reason why I like to go board on board. In fact, Jerry and I were just talking about it. A lot of the wooden kit, a lot of the kits, if it has a wooden deck, and even if it's a steel flat car kit, it's probably a piece of scribe siding or it's plywood. And it's great. It will give you that individual board look. But the problem is when you go to start weathering it, it all looks the same. If you use board by board construction, you can have some variations in it. You can go in, you can distress the boards a little differently. You don't have grain running from this board to this board to this board to this board because it's a piece of solid material, or worse yet, plywood. So this is really, really handy, and it gives you a much truer representation of the prototype when you go board to board, board on board. Now, all of these were stained the same way, the same inks, the same everything, okay? But you will note that some of the boards are a little darker than others on this one. I'll walk this around and show it to you here in a second. This was not a case of, and I've seen this done in some Craftsman kits, and they'll tell you, take a third of the boards or a quarter of the boards and you put them in this bucket and you put this mixture of alcohol and India ink in it. Then you take this number of boards and you throw it in this bucket with this strength of alcohol and India ink in it. And then you do this number with that and this number, and you end up with a zebra stripe deck, okay? Is that going to happen in the prototype? I'm not going to tell you it doesn't, because I've seen cases where it does, but think of it like the privacy fence around your backyard. Go out back, and especially if you've got an alley, walk out in the alley and look up and down at your neighbor's fences and look at yours and count the number of shades of gray you see in their fence. And I got a news flash for you, it's probably one. Because all of those boards have been out there the exact same amount of time, they've all been exposed to the exact same weathering, and they've all churned the same shade of gray, at least for here in North Texas. In other climates, they'll turn other colors. But by and large, what you're going to see is one shade of gray, because it's all made out of the same species of wood, and it's all been out there the same amount of time. Now, what you might see, and what is a neat little feature every once in a while, if you want to do this, stain your deck boards first and put them on and leave one out, or maybe two, and put two brand new unstained boards in there so it looks like it had a bit of a hole and the car shop went out, quickly nailed two boards on and put it back out in the lot. But don't do it on every car. One on the layout, maybe two. And if you do two, put like 2 boards or 3 boards down on one end and do like 1 board on the other car. And try to keep them on either end of the layout. One is a neat feature. Several of them becomes a bit monotonous. It becomes a bit of a trope, you know? So try to vary that kind of stuff around a bit, but it is a good way to give you something a little unique about that particular car. I'm going to walk this around and show you. There's a couple of different ways that you can deck a car. If you find that you're getting a little bit of space where an even number of boards isn't going to fit, you can either space them out a little bit, which is what I did on this one. I typically don't like to do that, but I wanted to do it on this one to show what it looks like, because you're going to see a little bit of daylight through the boards. Typically, on most of these that I've seen, they were some sort of tongue and groove in a lot of cases. and you wouldn't see this on a prototypical car. But if you've only got 3 scale inches you're trying to make up at the end of the, when you're putting your deck on, sometimes it's easier to space a board out a little bit than it is to put one board in, okay? Now, what I will tell you, if you've done all your measurements right, you should end up with an even number of boards, okay? If you end up with a little wide, you can sand one board down a little thinner. But here's the trick, okay? When we start to put the decking on these cars, you're going to lay about this much of the car from one end. Then I want you to flip the car around and start decking from the other side and work your way towards the middle, okay? If you have to put a narrow board into the deck to hide that gap, it's somewhere roughly in the center, which means it's going to be underneath the load and less visible to the naked eye. If you put that narrow board out on the end, I promise you might as well paint it highlighter yellow, because it's going to stand out at every, I mean, that car is going to roll by. I mean, you can roll that thing by at Lionel speed, and somebody's going to go, hey, that board's not the same width as everything else, as he follows it around the layout. They really do stick out bad when that happens. But if you hide it somewhere in the middle of the deck, it doesn't have to be dead center. It could be off to one side or off to the other side, but you want it somewhere in the middle where you can hide it under the load. And if you get them where they're just a little askew somewhere in there a little bit, you may have to file a little bit of a profile or sand a little bit of a profile in it to get that last board to fit in place. But it's all doable. So now that we've got this, should be dry enough, you want to turn it where, so we've been building it upside down, turn the car over, and we're going to start putting the deck boards on. Depending on your prototype, some of them had the deck boards that went all the way out over the insill. Most of them did not. Most of them started on the inside edge of the insill and worked their way to the other end. Something else that you might want to consider when you're building these going forward, some railroads, the insills were tall enough that the deck boards would actually line up flush. So something that I've done in the past is I will take this same deck board material and set it on top of my plans when I'm gluing this together, and that will act as a spacer, and then I can offset it. But if you do that, make your insills a little bit taller than your end beams a little bit taller than your side sills. So you might want to go to a 4x10 side sill and a 4x12 end if you want your deck to be flush. Depends on the railroad you're modeling. Some do, some don't. I personally don't like them that way. I like to have the top of my insill showing.
And we're not staining the deck that way.
No, we're not. We're going to glue them on, and then we'll come back in. We'll add a little distressing to it, and we will. Oh, good. Let me try to get my hands out of the way while I'm working on this. So I'm coming in, as you can see up here on the TV screen, and I'm gluing down. I'm putting down enough width to put down 2 or 3 boards at a time. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to add just a little bit of glue, especially out here on this outer edge. Typically, I don't paint the inside or the tops of the sills, but when you're staining them like this on the quick, you kind of can't help it to some degree. I typically like raw wood to raw wood for my joints whenever I can. Now you'll note too, I got the glue a little thick, so I'm coming back in and I'm scraping some of that glue back off because I don't want a lot of squeeze out in here because it's a little bit of a challenge to clean it up. Now I will come in now and I will take 3 deck boards. I'm going to line them up between my thumb and my index finger here. I'm going to get them roughly evenly spaced but touching side to side. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to line them up on the car and set them down into the glue. And I can already tell you my math's a little off and my deck boards are all too narrow, so I'm going to have to cut them, lift them off of here and redo them. Once again, 0 probably bit me, would be my guess. Either that or I started building part of this and not looking before I was stepped down and started talking and got one of my measurements standard gauge instead of narrow. No, ours the right width. I must have just messed up my deck boards. Okay, so when you do something like that, again,
you just stress the end of your deck board?
I will once I get them on. Once I get it on and I get it fully dried, I'll come back in and just stress them out with add the grain, and then I'll show you a neat trick for doing the deck boards. I typically do it before I stain it, just to kind of help let the stain settle into all the little nooks and crannies. So since I'm gonna have to recut some deck boards, I'm scraping that glue off so that I don't have it setting up there and causing my boards to be unevenly spaced.
Your problem is your spacing when you hit those and the other sills is not the same.
No, not really. It gets down to that. If you're building this for the contest, or AP evaluations, yeah, I'd probably go back and straighten it up. If you're building this one just to be building a freight car and kind of getting your feet wet with it, it's like the first pancake never turns out right. The first waffle's always a little off, that kind of thing.
This is gonna be one of the 6 cars.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So should the deck board extend over the side sills?
I followed your instructions for that exactly. My deck boards are short.
They can overlap a little bit, but here's the thing. If you want to come back in and turn it into a gondola or a boxcar or something like that, then no. Typically, they do overlap just a little bit. But if you're putting stake pockets in, you're going to have to come back in and notch them, or put in some that are right there where the stake pockets are that are just the same width as the car. Because otherwise, when you drive your stakes in, they won't go down into the pocket correctly.
You're saying the deck boards do not go over the end sills?
You can if you want to.
I mean the side sills.
It's strictly up to you. It's strictly up to you. On most flats, I do have it overlap just a little bit. But if you want to go and do the gondola sides like I was talking about before, or you want to turn it into a boxcar or something else, then you want them to be flush. But they do have just a couple of inches of overlap. I get you? That help? Yeah, that should have been long enough. What the heck?
Yeah, typical of men, I'm about 4 inches too short.
0 bit me. Yep. Okay. No, you're fine. That'll work. That'll work just fine. Yeah, that's fine.
About 3 or 4 at a time?
Yeah, like I say, I'll take 2 or 3 of them and just kind of do this with it. And then just line that up and set it down on the glue.
Paint glue on first?
Yeah, I paint glue on about the width of 3 or 4 boards, and then set it down and keep moving. And that's why I like to have them all cut at once, because then if I glue basically 5 board widths worth down, but I only put 3 on, now I got glue sitting here drying. I just reach over in the pile, grab a couple more, and keep adding boards until I run out of glue, and then add more glue, add more boards.
When you say paint glue on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally coming in here, I'm getting just a little ball of glue, yep, on here with the needle. And then I'll come in here and I'll run a bead down here. And in fact, I'll do it on this one as a piece of scrap. So I'll come in here and do one of these. I got a little dry glue on here. Get some fresh glue on it. So I'll come in here and I'll just do a little bit of a scrape, and I'm spinning it just a little bit as I go. And then that will lay down just a little bitty bead like that. And if it gets a little bit too much on there, you can come back in, make sure your fingers and your thumb are cleared off. Lay it in here like this and drag it across. Right. And then anything that's...
So you don't glue the sides.
Yeah, it will also too, if you've got a whole big old glob of glue up here, it'll come in here and it will carry that off without putting it down on either side. It'll carry that off on your finger and your thumb, and you can wipe that off on a towel and leave you just what you need. All right, so what the devil's going on here? According to this, if I go 0 to here, or edge to here, okay, so what have I got going on here? Aha. 2x6s. It's not bad. I think I lost this.
Did you weather this after you?
Yes. Yep. Yep. I make sure the deck's down and good and dry, and then come back in and did the alcohol and then the ink stain on it.
I see.
Okay. Yep, I like that much better.
Microphone cords. Can't roll around.
Okay. Well, I can go down.
Or yeah, there, yeah, that works. Thank you. Duane, so give me a heads up whenever I can wrap up. Tell them.
Yep, we'll do homework assignments and stuff here in just a
Yeah,
little bit.
okay. Because it's after 1 now, so.
Yep. Now we can get the answer.
Hey, David, we need to talk about that situation and what Venus told me. I called her after you and I talked. So when, yeah, we'll talk later after the meeting. When it's just the two of us.
Yep. Yeah, I'll tell you, I have not gotten myself in my glue since. Been using that now for 25, 30 years.
Sure was hoping Trapper would be here today.
He's been sticking pretty close with he's been sticking pretty close to the house this week. His wife has been at the hospital day and night.
Okay.
He's been home taking care of dogs.
Is the daughter that ill? I mean,
This has happened probably in the last couple of years. This is about the third time it's happened, to the point where it's like, where, from what he tells me.
$400 to go to into a diabetic coma.
wow.
So she goes to the ER she goes to the hospital for 2 or 3 days and gets all different kind of things to get it back down to a little bit more normal for her.
Well, that's
wow.
When it does that, she's just like, ribbon.
Yep.
Yeah, I can understand.
It's got them a little askew, so I use that. You can buy them at Micromark. Yeah. Actually, they're probably available in other places. They're just an engineering square. Engineering squares.
Oh, okay.
And they come in 3 different sizes that I've seen so far. Those are the little ones. And look and see. I think Micromark has an NMRA discount.
Yes, they do.
Does that show up online, you think?
Yeah. Yeah, there should be a way. Well, that's true. Yeah, of all the things, Dad was on a flight. Dad was on a flight here a number of years ago now and ended up sitting next to the guy that's the owner of Micromark.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got on the flight and Dad pulls out his Gazette and starts reading it. And the guy goes, "Oh, you're into model trains?" I said, "Yeah." Introduced himself and
Off they went.
ended up chatting the rest of the way. He did the same thing with the guy that owns Digitrax.
Yeah, you told me about that.
So far, the only thing I've ever run into doing that in person was I was on jury duty one time down in Dallas. I was reading the Gazette during lunch, and a guy comes walking up and we started chit-chatting. Turns out he was an NN3 model. I'm like, man, you are psychotic.
Yeah.
It's neat stuff.
Why are you being so belligerent today?
I have no idea, just usual.
Your charming personality.
Thank you. Ask,
Yeah.
ask Bob Answer, he'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's right. Reason I said.
It's a
You
misnomer.
do realize you're standing in front of the camera, just blocking the view that old man's trying to take care of over here.
Just point it that way.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
So what's
there.
40 said lately?
I haven't talked to Gordon.
You helped me
Last couple
a
of
great
days.
deal
Oh, good.
today on everything.
Good.
The other is,
I sent him a
it was always bothering me how to apply the glue,
Yep.
text
so that
message.
you don't have any over. How do you
I sent him
do
a
that?
text message and
Like you say, a toothpick.
he hadn't even read it.
Yeah, it's just not, yeah, it's too big. It really is.
It's gonna stick to the thing anyway, and then build up unless you wipe it off.
Yep.
He's gonna have a lot of fun the next year or two.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, he's got to deal with the Sonic mentality.
Yeah.
That's gonna be tough. That is gonna be tough.
Now, one last thing to mention, as you're gluing these things on, you see here I've started from both ends. Every once in a while, flip the car upside down and see if you have any squeeze out between your sills. This is another good opportunity to use that negative tweezer. You can come back in and run it down the length of those things on the joints, and it'll scrape any glue out of there. Next to none, just the way you like it.
I like your little crane.
I think it's turned out pretty cool.
It's gonna look great.
I am,
Finally finished.
yeah, I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm trying to figure out how I want to do the roof. On a lot of the skidders and yarders and things like that, it would have kind of it would be sheet metal, but it'd be kind of in an arch like that.
Yeah.
Some of them were peaked. I thought about even making just a
I
slant
was gonna
roof.
say a lean-to.
But the more I think about it, the more I don't know, I don't think the aesthetic's gonna work. That's when my artistic side kicks in and goes, no. So I don't know. I'm gonna play with it some. I think it needs to be taller, depending on the roof. I'm gonna have to put something on top of this to raise it up a little bit, because right now the hole would have to fit around the smoke box and the stack. I'd like to get it up high enough that it's just the stack sticking out. So it's going to take a little bit of tweaking to get it where I want it. I've got all the article written up to where I am right now, and I dug out my book on donkey engines. There's a wonderful book. A guy named Merv, his last name is Johnson, wrote a book called In Search of Donkey Engines, and just a phenomenal piece of research. And a lot of good drawings in there to how all the plumbing works and where all the parts and pieces go. And it was really, really handy. So I'm going to sit down and add a lot of things to that one to add a little extra detail.
You can have something that's,
Okay, so let's get some more deck boards cut here.
After you apply the deck work, then what's the next step? Are you gonna do something else today? Or?
No, today, this is as far as we're gonna get today is putting the deck boards on it.
Okay.
Then when we come back, we're doing it, the first Saturday next month, for just the guys that are doing the flat card, build. Or if you wanna come in and listen in again, you're welcome to. Yep. My daughter is moving into college this fall, and move-ins the second weekend, so. Or actually, no, second weekend besides being, 4014 being here is, the weekend I'm gonna be in Durango riding the trains.
So guys, just as a heads up, next month we meet on the first Saturday of the month, not the second Saturday of the month. We're going to pick up on this clinic and finish it off on, except for Pat. But we're gonna work on this clinic next month on the first Saturday of the month.
Now Pat will join us online.
Online, yep. If you missed something, the video is going to be posted probably before the end of the day on the YouTube channel, right, David? Okay. So it'll probably be posted before the end of the day today online. You can go back and rewatch the video and see what you missed or whatever.
Now, for the end of the session here, like I say, we're just going to put the deck boards on and call it a day. For next month, you have some homework to do. And I will ask Mr. Lysing to send this out in an email for those who left early. All of the plastic parts in your little grant line packages and all of that will need to be painted. If you made your car a boxcar red, paint them all boxcar red. If you made them black, paint them black. The brass wire that came in your bag, you're going to want to go through, take one length of that, and paint it as well.